The story of Senua is a tale of isolation, severe hallucination, tragedy, and despair, mixed with the Norse mythology and its consequences. Senua, a pict woman from the Orkney Islands in Scotland, uses a handmade canoe rowing towards a Norse shipwreck while having a human head wrapped in a sack which suddenly starts breathing. The supernatural phenomenon doesn't seem to face Senua, someone living in the 8th century era who believed in their magical gods wholeheartedly, as something like this, despite rare, could be amongst other magical occurrences. But for Senua, who is convinced to be tormented by a hereditary curse, hearing voices of spirits whom she refers to as furies, seeing things even more vividly beyond any typical person's perspective, anything could be possible for her. The female narrator who guides and directly speaks to Senua, acting as her protector, explains how many of these new voices belong to the recently deceased residents of the Orkney Island, who were savagely murdered by the cruel and barbaric Norse raiders. Amongst the Furies, another dark force exists within Senua, simply referred to as the Darkness, which Senua consistently fights against in order to survive, a negative and destructive voice and force which has only one intention: to destroy Senua from within. Paddling the canoe forward, Senua observed the shipwrecks of the Norsemen, with a trail of slain paving the path, engraving terror within the hearts of any spectator. The narrator describes what Senua is thinking about, that she is entering the domain of Helheim, the place of mist and fog, death and suffering, the hell which is represented in the Norse religion, a place reserved for the weak, the diseased, the ones who died of natural causes, and the cowards, and of course the ones who don't believe in the Norse religion, meaning all the people of Orkney who died under the hands of the Norse raiders, who in their own minds are the brave warriors who will end up in Valhalla. The concept of good or evil didn't qualify one for Valhalla or Helheim, only bravery displayed in war, which encouraged the Vikings even more to go to war and die. Despite believing she's entering Helheim, Senua is entering another island of Orkney, seemingly depicted in the Class 1 Pictish stone engravings. Finding a stone engraving, a mysterious voice by the name of Druth explains how burning of a corpse takes the soul straight to Hela's gate, the mistress of Helheim, hence why the Norsemen burned many corpses, and now Senua wants to get to the gate in order to save her beloved, hence why she carries his head as a vessel to connect with him.
I know what she's thinking. I hear her thoughts. It's not too late to get into the boat and go back. No one will judge her. No one will ever know. Oh, she heard us. There's no going back.
You can't do it.
Senua pushes away a world that conspired to cause so much suffering. There's nothing to go back to, and worse to look forward to.
Do not forget my stories, Senua, because your darkness comes from hell, and your fate lies there. They say the burning of a corpse will take you straight to Hela's gate, but gods and the living will follow this path. You must leave the Isles of Orkney across the eastern sea, and find a road that leads north and down through deep, dark valleys. After 9 nights of riding, you will follow a great river and will find a bridge covered in gold. The path to Helheim goes from there, across the River of Knives that flows from the dark world of Niflheim.
Arriving at the River of Knives and the bridge over the river leading to the halls of hell, as Druth explained it, Senua communicates with her deceased love's head, Delian's head, getting a sense of confirmation that he's there. Overwhelmed with fear and doubt, it's clearly revealed that this is nothing but one of the main docking sites the Norsemen got off their ships and raided the Isles, leaving a blood trail behind. Senua, however, sees this differently as the gateway to hell. Her goal of coming to this cursed place is to save Delian's soul, who seems to be suffering at Helheim in a foreign hell of the Raiders. Hence why, against all odds, she has come to face Hela, a powerful Norse god, and face her darkness, which seems to originate from Helheim as well. Some voices within her head repeat that she can't do anything and she will fail, but some push her forward that she needs to try, otherwise Delian would suffer and rot, displaying the conflicting internal voices of a person, but for Senua, it's more audible and real. There's only one problem, however, that Helheim is reserved for the dead and living cannot travel there, but Druth, an Irishman who was enslaved by the Vikings, learned about their religion and informed Senua about a hidden path leading to the gate of Hela. Trying to pass a gate, it seems to be sealed by a symbol which the deceased Druth's representation guides her to unlock. He explains how he was enslaved for 6 years by the Northmen when he learned their ways and religion, but when he found his way back home, he tried to tell others about their religion and how real it is, but everyone laughed apart from Senua, who became good friends. Unfortunately, not listening to Druth and the savagery of the Vikings, they soon suffered their arrival, paying a heavy price with their lives and almost full extermination. Druth explains how Hela was cast down to Helheim and was granted power over those dying of sickness, old age, hardship, and self-inflicted death, giving cause to the savagery of the Northmen, who torture people in order for them to end in hell, but conveniently, when they died during a raid or a battle, they would themselves end in Valhalla and avoid Helheim. As Delian was sacrificed, he was sent to Helheim, hence why Senua wants to bargain with Hela to release him and let him rest peacefully. This is despite Senua having been brought up in an old Pictish religion who tends to believe Druth's stories and believing the gods of the Norse do actually exist. As she tries to open the door to Hela's gate, the darkness appears and infects her arm with some sort of dark substance growing within her skin and veins, which slowly would consume her mind if she fails and dies from the imaginary Viking warriors who appear at different points.
You're going to die. Get up. Darkness is coming.
The narrator explains how Delian used to tell her the worst battles are fought in the mind, with every defeat letting the darkness grow further and take over the soul. This reveals that the darkness which haunts and torments Senua is in fact her psychosis and possibly severe schizophrenia. The imaginary Vikings which appear at random times are representation of extreme thoughts trying to burrow their way into her mind, with the voices of Furies being her own internal conflicting thoughts, but for her being very real. The decomposed head of Delian she carries in order to save his soul only display the horrifying truth of how she is in a raided and exterminated isle, all alone by herself, trying to go through an arduous journey, facing the imaginary yet so real vicious Norse gods. Before managing to open the door leading to Hela, Senua must first face the god of fire, Sault, and the god of illusion, Valravn. The first time Druth and Senua met was when he escaped the Northmen, having bad burns all over his body, who had a similar condition to Senua, with the source of his darkness being the Northmen. Senua also manages to speak to her deceased mother, who has binded with a waterfall, being very kind and encouraging, soothing Senua how she is not cursed and there's nothing wrong with the way that she sees the world, displaying how she was always supportive, unlike her father. Trying to enter the gate of Sault, the only way is through touching one of the altars dedicated to him, which unveils how the Vikings sacrificed many of the people to Sault by burning them and erecting this altar in his name. Druth in fact was from Erin, or as of now known as Ireland, whose people were exterminated and him taken as a slave. The god he used to pray to was Tuatha de Danann, but he abandoned his god as he mentions his own gods, including the gods of the Norsemen, didn't answer to his cries and prayers for mercy, seeing all his people killed in every imaginable way, taken to raids alongside the savage Vikings, seeing that done over and over again on other nations and tribes, which made him question his loyalty to gods who don't protect anyone. He even advises Senua to abandon her own gods, the gods of the Picts, and instead use her wits to survive.
Do your gods answer your prayers, Senua? I asked the gods for mercy, all of them, even theirs. None answered. In the end, I set myself free. To Defy the gods, Senua. Find your own path, like I find mine.
My gods abandoned me. I am alone.
In one raid, when they set the village on fire for Sault, Druth took his own chance and ran into the fire, believing the superstitious Vikings wouldn't follow, as they would be afraid the fire would send their damned soul to Sault. That's why he keeps on coughing, seemingly he suffered from the burns and smoke inhalation, but that was the cost of his freedom. He then meets Senua in the wilderness when he starts guiding her. Senua eventually faces Sault, the giant whom she slays, managing to free Druth from his torment.
Spill the blood of serpents. Take his mark, and I will change you from the world and forever be your dead.
You destroyed everything, everyone, but not me. Fight now.
In the end, we all fall. Even the gods have their time.
And I will go to hell to keep
I die free. Only you will carry my stories with you. I have fulfilled my quest.
Yes.
Darkness comes. I vow to guide you in this life and the next to fulfill yours.
Sault's mark gets stamped on Hela's door, leaving Valraven's mark left to open. Valraven is the god of illusion, the ancestor of seers and master of ravens. During her journey, it's revealed Senua once tried to battle her darkness, going into an exile in the wild, living on berries and rabbits, but the darkness nearly killed her, and that's when she met Druth, who helped her deal with the darkness, as he had it himself. Senua, someone who suffers from psychosis with no modern medication or support, having no idea this is a mental health condition. The myths and legends all come true, seeing everything so vividly as if they truly exist, fighting imaginary Norsemen whom to her seem real, when in fact she is amongst the slain and a completely burned down and exterminated isle. She exiled herself, leaving Delian, as she didn't want her curse to infect Delian, willing to die but not see Delian infected. Druth then entails the story of Fendan, an Irishman whose sister was captured by the Northmen. For her release, the father gave him gold to pay to the Northmen, but the cruel Northmen took the gold and chained Fendan for a full day without water or food and then released them. On his return, the father's enemies had burned his house, which burned the father, and they killed the brother as well. The enemies invite Fendan to a hall near the sea as Redress, but they betrayed him, selling him to the Norsemen. 6 years go by when in one raid Fendan finally decides to escape, partially burning, going into the wilds of the Isles of Orkney, meeting Senua. That man was no other than Druth, who was born anew, deciding never to suffer again, assuming Senua as his never-found sister, trying to protect her. And of course, after one day of being chained by the Norsemen, he tried to explain to his people that they are savage people that will definitely come back to steal the rest of the gold. But they just laughed at him and never listened to him. But of course, the Northmen came back and killed them all after he was sold as a slave to them. As Senua gets closer to Valraven, she senses the darkness getting stronger, believing Valraven was the one who dragged her to get into the wilderness, being the cause of it all when she engages in a battle. After defeating Valraven, his corpse disappears, revealing how all of this takes place in her mind. But being convinced she has the ability to see the hidden and unseen, she believes them to be real, and thanks to Druth and his knowledge about the Northman culture and beliefs, she goes on this journey to free Delian's soul from the Norse gods. Finding the face of her mother on a rock formation, it's displayed how her mother, Galina, had the sight just like her as well, being able to see into the underworld, someone who was a priestess and a healer. Having both the marks of Valraven and Sault, Senua opens the gate of the bridge when she finds herself immersed in darkness, with the haunting darkness which tormented her revealing itself that it was never gone, since she thought that she defeated it in the wild. The darkness reveals what happened on the day the Northmen raided Senua's hometown. When she exiled herself in the wild to defeat her darkness, she goes to the brink of death, surrounded in dark and cold, when Druth, a badly burned and scarred Irishman, finds her, someone who has been both physically and mentally tormented with his family lost, leading him to lose his sanity and develop mental health conditions, seeing himself in Senua. He helps her stand on her feet and find a way to win the battles from within. After believing she has overcome the darkness and the voices of the Furies, she heads back to Delian, having high hopes that she will marry him and have a beautiful life, coming to the horrifying sight of everyone slain in the town in the worst imaginable way possible. And his beloved Delian, a warrior who fought with all of his might against the Northmen, being blood-eagled, a horrible execution which only the sight of makes all the Furies and the darkness come rushing back to Senua, worsening her condition. Knowing the Norse gods don't answer to the prayers of the foreigners, according to what she learned from Druth, she takes the head of Delian, believing it to contain his soul, acting as a vessel, so his soul can rest if she goes to the gates of hell and bargains with Hela. Passing the bridge through the River of Knives, she battles the guardian of the bridge and defeats it, getting closer into the realm of the Helheim.
She's injured. She can still do it.
As she gets closer, the giantess Hela appears with half her face charred and the other flesh, which only the sight of terrifies Senua. As she takes a swing at her with her sword, it shatters into pieces, displaying how powerful Hela truly is. The force of the impact throws Senua down, sending her below the bridge. In a cave, taking shelter and healing her wounds, she is overcome by self-pity, guilt, and sense of failure, which reveals the darkness as her own alternate self, bringing her down and always giving her negativity, being the internal harsh voice always criticizing one, but for Senua, it's much more powerful and real. In her worst time, feeling weak and defeated, a shimmer of hope shines through, being the memories of Delian.
Why go on when you give everything and face that which torments you, only to find that it is worse than you could have imagined? Why go on?
It's not real. It's a trick. It's not real. It is real. Listen to it. She can
Don't give up.
Did it? It's
Not like this.
It's not real. It is real. It's a trick. Don't trust it. Maybe you're already dead.
Who are you?
Maybe this
Do you still believe in yourself?
No, it's
Enough.
It's a trick. She knows this. It's a trick. He's already dead. You know he's here. He can't be here. It's impossible.
Come to me. Please.
Going through multiple Norsemen shipwrecks, destroyed in the rocky shores, the narrator explains how Senua was tormented by her mental health condition ever since she was young, barely leaving the house, only occasionally getting firewood and herbs, away from society, and her father, Zembol, made sure of that. That's until one day she sees a boy figure sword dancing beneath a tree which mesmerizes a lonely and barely functioning teenage Senua. After days and days watching him from afar, she starts mimicking his moves until one day he notices her, being impressed by her sword fighting moves, and even more impressed that she learned it all from simply watching him. Poor Senua, surrounded by the powerful delusions and hallucinations, sees the day that she met Delian as clear as day. That how beautiful it truly was, giving her a new hope for living and moving forward.
What's your name?
Senua.
I haven't seen you before.
I don't leave home much.
Oh, Zenua's daughter.
I have to go.
Wait. Who taught you to fight like that?
No one.
No one.
Well, I watched you, and
You learnt all of that from watching me? You should become a warrior, you know.
me?
I'm Dillian. I'm here for the warrior trials. Just come and watch. And bring your sword.
You can't put it into words. That moment when you look into the eyes of the one who's supposed to reassure you, make you feel safe. It only takes an instant. Fear swallows you before you have a chance to make sense of it. And darkness becomes a part of who you are.
You killed him.
But her world changed the day the Northmen took him from her. Senua knows that there's no going back to how things were. That there's nothing to go back to at all.
Stay still, stay quiet, hide, don't tell her.
Their gods can see into your mind. They will use this power to destroy you.
They won't stop me. I can still feel him.
Whatever's left of him, they will never let him go.
That all shatters when she sees the horrendous reality of the place being littered with butchered people. That's when Senua finds Gram, a legendary sword put together from the pieces of shattered sword of the great legendary warrior Sigmund, a sword capable of slaying gods. But for Senua to be able to pull it from the tree, she needs to put the pieces together, and for that, she needs to travel to different realms and face trials. Through the maze-like trial, we get a glimpse of what Senua's father, Zembol, was like. He was a religious man who believed Senua's condition is a curse which could make others suffer. For that, he forced her to stay in and prayed for her day and night so she could get better. But of course, trapping one in, away from society, in isolation and strong supernatural beliefs, could only make one's mental health worse. That's when Senua decides to leave the house and be with Dillian, leaving despite her father's persistence. Traveling into the second realm for the next trial, the comfort of Dillian is shown how his calm and supportive demeanor and approach helped Senua overcome the voices of the Furies and take control, literally focusing on what's important and the reality than the superstitions the father forced on Senua. After Dillian saw how strong and resilient Senua truly is in the town's warrior trials, he believed how she is simply misunderstood and someone whose abilities could be very useful in battles and wars, believing her to be much more than what she's led to believe, spending his own time and efforts to help Senua overcome her internal battles, which, as Dillian said, are the hardest to fight. In this dark trial, a visualization of what Senua's mind looks like can be seen, and how she spent days and weeks with Dillian or without, trying to meditate and overcome her psychosis or darkness, the curse as she calls it, and all she needed to overcome this darkness was a little encouragement and not the tough love the father showed her with magical gods and superstitions. Years pass and Senua trains every day with Dillian, becoming a skillful warrior, especially due to her ability seeing things and shapes others can't. But despite things going well, despite all her meditation, the darkness catches up with her again and her past and Zembol. Entering yet another trial, it's revealed why Senua left Dillian for the wild in exile. A plague breaks out in the town, killing many, which makes Senua and many people blame her as the cursed one, believing what the father Zembol said, that her curse or darkness will make people suffer.
They're blaming me for the plague. They say that I'm cursed. What if they're right?
How would they know such a thing? Are they gods? None of us are. They're just people. Good people, but they're scared. They're afraid of what they can't see. Like children scared of the dark. They make up stories to fill the void. It doesn't make them true.
What if my father was right?
You have to step out of this darkness. Let them see who you really are, like I have. You're not a monster.
This darkness has made me a monster.
Despite Dillian trying to convince her it's got nothing to do with her, Senua can't help but think the root of the plague was because of her darkness, even though she feels so much better with Dillian's presence. That's why she leaves, getting to meet Druth and coming back after some time, just to see everyone butchered by the Norsemen. As Senua manages to collect all the shards, she pulls out Graham, ready to face Hela once again. Going through the grim underworld filled with suffering souls, Senua finds her mother, who gave up to her own darkness and ended up here, someone who towards the end was overwhelmed by hallucinations, whom the father trapped in the basement and beat so the gods would forgive her and heal her.
It's me, Senua. It's so loud.
It's not her.
So full of hate.
It's a trap.
I just want to help them. Tell me what to do. Your father wants them to go away, and he only hurts me to silence them. But he's gone now.
They always come back. He says I will die if I go with them. They say that I'm already dead.
No,
And they want me with them.
Stop!
That's why they crawl through the walls.
Don't listen
Do you
to them.
see them? Do you see their faces?
He's coming. Senua, help me. Help, get me out of here. Don't go.
After leaving the underworld, Senua enters the domain of Garm, the beast that guards the underworld. As she manages to find a bridge leading to the gate to pass the dark caves, the bridge collapses with Senua barely managing to brace herself, but unfortunately Dillian's head falls into the abyss, with a brave yet terrified Senua driven to save Dillian, going deep into the dark abyss of the caves to find the head.
Without his head, you will never bring his soul back. His fate is sealed. Now it can see you at your weakest. The time you suffered as a child at the hands of your father seemed no one time for Dillian. Do you remember the darkness? The beast is bringing it back.
Why did you leave me? It's spreading. Father's keeping me away from you. Away from you. I'm not going to rot in here. I'm going to find Dilly.
As she goes deep down, she faces the beast being surrounded in the dark, which uses fear to challenge Senua.
People think of evil as an unnatural, invisible force, and so invoke the gods for protection. But evil can come from the hand behind the gods. A familiar hand, cold and cruel. He tried to fix her with his rituals, kept her trapped in that hole. She couldn't say which was worse. The darkness, or the monster that her father had become. She couldn't fight them both. And so she left, headed for the one ray of light that shone down on her. If she had stayed, she wouldn't have survived. Maybe Dillian would still be alive. She will save his soul. Even if this time she can't save her own.
After managing to defeat the beast, Senua enters the gate of Hela, where she meets Druth one last time. He reveals why he was so overwhelmed with guilt and shame. Under severe torture by the Vikings, he gave important information about the treasures and hidden paths so the Vikings could have easy raids. But that's when he decided to finally escape, atoning for his sins by trying to at least help Senua. He explains in a meaningful way how it is the closest people to us who can hurt us the most, which is true in Senua's case, with her father trying desperately to protect her, but instead worsening her condition and stopping her from socializing and going out. Just thinking prayers will make the darkness go away. That's what he did with his wife as well, Galena, until she passed away, as she couldn't take the darkness any longer.
I thought I could help to broker peace. Or at least stay their hands from slaughter. But under torture, I did no such thing. I led them to the treasures and slaves they sought. But I wasn't the only one. Another came to the Northmen willingly, offering a bargain, a man in black from your lands. And he was offered safe passage for his treason. In the end, Senua, it isn't the gods that cause us so much suffering, but those closest to us.
Senua leaves her old scarred self behind and enters the gate, seeing exactly how her mother passed away. Burning at the stake, with half her face charred, resembling Hela, the truth is unveiled that it was the father who killed the mother in order to get rid of her darkness, but in such a horrible, painful way. The sight was so traumatizing for the child Senua that her mind forgot about it until now, with the darkness revealing itself to be no other than the superstitious father, Zembal. In a tragic display of allegory, Senua sees Hela as her mother, someone who defied the gods and hence was casted down and treated like a monster. The mother suffered and didn't believe in the gods or the father, hence why he punished her as such, killing her so the gods would forgive her. Hela, a suffering and hurt giantess, tries her best to push Senua away. That's when the darkness, the father, keeps on manipulating Senua on how the pain was necessary to face the darkness. The pain was the ingredient to overcome the shadows. That's when Senua is swarmed by the summoned monstrous Northmen, in fact all being nothing but the visualizations of her never-ending internal battles, of how, no matter what, she can never succeed. She keeps on fighting the reincarnated Valraven, Sault, Garm, and many more, but no matter what, they keep on reappearing. The father's voice repeatedly echoes in her mind on how she is a failure and to let go of Dillian and her battles and to give in to her father's beliefs. She keeps on fighting hours on end, with more and more monstrous figures appearing in the shape of Senua's worst nightmares until she is defeated, seeing herself badly injured.
You're alive, and there's no doubt. And you never took him from me. And I can't save them.
Pleading with Hela if she's real or not, she stabs her, which ultimately kills Senua, a resilient and courageous warrior who fought for love and facing her worst nightmares.
When our time comes, we must look death in the eye and embrace it as a friend. Only then can we let go of our fear and emerge from our darkness.
That's when Hela picks up Delian's head in a surprising way, saddened by all of this, and finally, in a hurtful and reluctant manner, weeps for the head and what it represented and who it was, eventually letting go of it, dropping it into the abyss below. Only then it's revealed Hela has been all along Senua herself, or another alternate version of herself, which has been fighting her since the beginning, a monster from within which she has been battling, which both in agreement finally let go of Delian, accepting his fate, also accepting her own condition that she should not be afraid of the darkness and live alongside it. Letting the rot or the darkness grow in her body, something she was so terrified of. It turns out it's not as scary as she thought it to be, with her mind only making it worse, and that she can live a good life alongside the voices of the Furies, the darkness and the bad traumatizing past and the losses she endured, her mother and the loved one, Delian, and that life carries on. She continues on, mentioning how her story continues, which of course would follow in the sequel in the making, with more Scandinavian folklore and legends and her everyday internal battles. And that's it for this video, folks. Thank you very much for staying until now. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to stay tuned right here by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.
People think of evil as an unnatural, invisible force, and so invoke the gods for protection. But evil can come from the hand behind the gods. A familiar hand, cold and cruel. He tried to fix her with his rituals, kept her trapped in that hole. She couldn't say which was worse. The darkness, or the monster that her father had become.